Today, let's talk about B.B. King's new signature that's not a Lucille. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. That's right, new for February of 2023, Gibson's come out with something called the B.B. King Live at the Regal 335. Now, B.B. King, if you're not familiar, he's well regarded as one of the biggest blues guys ever. And his guitars were always called Lucille. So ever since the very early 80s, Gibson has been making some sort of a signature guitar for him that people have been buying up en masse. They've done a multitude of limited editions. Some of my favorite ones are the Gem series. But as far as I'm aware, this is his first non-Lucille signature guitar. So let's go ahead and check this thing out, because it was not cheap. So starting off here, it looks like we get one of those very nice Lifton style reissue cases, but let's go ahead and check this thing out. This is a custom color known as Argentine Gray. And that's what I really liked about this release, because this was a custom color offered in the golden era years before tobacco sunburst became a thing. It's just kind of a slightly more pale version of what we think a sunburst looks like. And I'm personally a big fan, and this is the first time I'm seeing it in the flesh. But you not only get this really cool color on the front, but it's also on the back and sides, but the neck is actually left natural on these. And as far as our aging job here, I would probably categorize it as a light to medium aging. I mean, it's not like we're rubbing the lacquer off the neck or anything. You've just got basic finish checking running up and down this whole thing. I would actually say, as far as aged guitars go, this one is pretty tasteful. It's not overdone. Another cool thing is we actually have a Veritone on a 335, which you don't normally have. Oh, and we've got the period correct strap buttons made of that white nylon-like material. There's one more spec that I found really fascinating about this guitar, and it's these things right here, which seems to suggest that King's original one had a stop bar tailpiece on it and it was converted to have a Bigsby. But these are actually mother-of-pearl inserts underneath the finish that they used to cap off the original studs of the stop bar tailpiece. That's just such a vintage thing to do. They could have just went with a custom-made plaque. That's what they would normally use to hide over things like that. But that makes me think it was some sort of an aftermarket modification, because you see that all the time. And as far as I'm aware, it's the first time that Gibson has ever recreated that on a limited edition. And to a slightly lesser extent of what makes this special is the factory Grover tuners. Apparently his had that. That was a common modification, but to have it factory done, that was nice. So that's pretty fascinating, but why is this a new B.B. King signature? It doesn't really look B.B. King. That's where the Live at Regal thing comes in. That's the name of the album that came out on November 21st of 1964, where it was basically live recordings at the Regal Theater over in Chicago, which was a nightclub, cool music venue that existed from 1928 all the way until 1968, when it shut down and was eventually destroyed in 1973. So yeah, long gone. But that album is regarded as one of the blues albums of all time. And apparently during that show, BB used a guitar that looked exactly like this, so they were trying to recreate it. I was unsuccessful in finding any video footage of that. I couldn't even really find any photos outside of the ones that Gibson provided, so I guess we'll just have to take their word for it, because I had never heard of this one before. But they had these priced at $10,000, which is quite a bit for a 335. They have custom shop 59, 61, and 64 reissues, all at a baseline of $6,000 brand new. Now you have to keep in mind this one is aged, so it's probably more appropriate to compare it to the light aged versions of all those that cost $6,800. Now I guess to be fair, we could also compare it to the heavy aged one at $9,000 or the ultra heavy aged at $10,700, and then technically getting a discount. But then you could also compare it to the legacy model, which has a flame maple on the top back, and those are only at $7,000. But you gotta remember, that one's not necessarily a limited edition. They're making as many as they can. So that's roughly a $3,200 premium, but what are you really getting for that? Well, we talked about the cool custom color, so that can attribute for some of it. You've got B.B. King's name attached to it. Even though he's no longer with us, his estate's likely getting a kickback. However, they did give you some pretty cool case candy, such as this cloth pennant that you could hang up somewhere. It says, "Gibson was there." And then it's got the album's name in the very same colorations that it did. So this is pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of the Korina series pennants that we saw in this episode. But next up, we've got an interesting little box here that also has the same font and colorings, reading Live at the Regal. And we've got a picture of BB on it, okay, playing that guitar, so that's nice. But if I'm not mistaken, I think this is a pack of playing cards. There's no one else is going to open them, so I might as well, so we can actually see what it is. So it looks like the back of all of them just says what we thought it would say with the old Gibson logo. And the leading card has the leading line of that show. And it looks like we got a little bit more history right here. Here's what our jokers are looking like. Oh, that's cool. Aces have the crown headstock logo, but our 2s look the same, 3s. But wow, I'm really glad I opened these. You've got some playing sax. Oh, the queen is the guitar itself, double printed. King, obviously, you've got BB King himself. Nothing special with your diamonds. And it doesn't look like they themed each and every one as far as the colors go. These are actually really high quality feeling. They feel like they're made of a vinyl material. Next up here, looks like we get a custom BB King photo pic tin that opens and looks like this. Then we get another little picture of him, and then, okay, we get some random knobs in here. Now, what's the story behind these knobs? Well, if you actually look on the tin, it looks like at one point in time he had the neck controls, these reflector style knobs rather than the bonnets. However, at the actual night of the recording, it looks like maybe only one of them is still the reflector as the next volume. So maybe he just played with the knobs on this guitar quite a bit and they just wanted to give you the option if you wanted to change it out. I'm not entirely too sure on that history. Then we've got our regular case keys, our typical historic paperwork collection, as well as our pre-packed checklist. A spare amber switch tip if you don't like the cream it comes stock with. A reproduction of an admission ticket to the event. That's pretty cool. And then lastly, a very beefy COA booklet with the same branding. And you get a picture in here and it tells you what number you have. This particular one is 35 out of the 100 that they made. That's right, super limited edition. This will eventually sell out and likely have some collector's value to it, because there's a lot of BB King collectors out there. And now that I've laid all this stuff out here, I did see one additional new piece of case candy. And they brought back the Mr. Dealer card and everything, but it's this one I wanted to point out. It's a new similarly styled one talking about the Murphy Lab. I'll let you pause to read it if you're interested. So needless to say, you do get a lot of cool stuff, but $10,000 is quite a price tag on one of these. So overall, has this been a hot seller for dealers within the past couple of days? Well, it certainly hasn't sold out as quick as some other limited editions, but it does have enough unique about it that you might be able to justify the price as a collector's piece. If you bought one of those other guitars that we talked about today, usually those don't hold value that well past a certain point. You can't sell that for brand new pricing on the used market, whereas one of these, you should always be able to get close, and it does have a chance, depending on how popular it becomes, to raise in value. So it just depends. Are you looking for a collector guitar that you can play because it's been lightly aged, or are you just looking for a strict player's guitar? I'll let you guys tell me in the comment section whether you think it's worth the premium or not. But this is just the look at the market after less than a week has passed. And I can't help but to think the reason why these haven't sold out quicker is Gibson chose not to make a promotional video about these. So maybe its history will change, because I think collectors will look at these in the future and go, hey, it's one of the only BB King signatures that's not a Lucille. So let's appreciate it for what it is today, throw it on the workbench to take a look at its parts and specs. Inside our little gray friend here, literally inside of it, I could hear a lot of things rattling around. Tons of wood splinters came out. Here's an example of one of the larger ones. And then this weird, strange wire. It looks like the ground wire. However, looking down here, there's not actually a hole for the ground wire to go through for the Bigsby, so perhaps that is just a tribute to the aftermarket installation of the Bigsby on his original one. It's either that or something is incorrect here. But anyways, let's go into our pickups. They are custom buckers on here, and they have aged the pickup covers ever so slightly. I'm actually quite a fan of how they did that on these. But the neck pickup looks like this with the patent applied for decal, and the bridge pickup is more of the same. Now, as far as the readings within the circuit, the bridge is 7.37 k ohms on those unpotted pickups, 7.77 in the neck, and the middle, just for fun, 3.78. Now, the truss rod cover calls it a stereo, although I'm not entirely too sure if it actually is a stereo output jack or not. The spec sheet just says it's a regular Switchcraft one, and to be honest, I'm not entirely too sure how to check that, because normally you have to have a special stereo lead to get that. It's not like the Les Paul custom stereo that we talked about in this episode that has the whole 2 output jacks. And here's the cavity itself where we can see our long neck tenon. I really like the way that one looks. It's nice and clean. A little bit of bare wood, but the rest just that really nice gray color. And inside the bridge pickup cavity, more of the same, but you can see the choke there screwed into the body. As far as construction, it's your typical 335. You got a maple poplar maple sandwich for the back, top, and sides, and then you've got the spruce bracing with a maple center block, and then in a second we'll get the endoscope out. You can see that's also on the back, and then you'll also have the curved edges. But it looks like they're running the grounding wire for our bridge just through that small area right here. So that means the only thing that's not grounded currently is the Bigsby itself. Our bridge is a Gibson ABR1, labeled as such, and it is not the wire retainer version. But this Bigsby itself is supposed to be a 1950s reissue of the B7 model. I'm not really that familiar with Bigsbys, but maybe the fonts are different down here or something like that, so it looks nice and cool. It's just strung up like your normal Bigsby though. But our Bigsby secures to the bottom using 3 screws, and then that is your strap button, which also helps secure it. And here's our cool mother-of-pearl inserts. My favorite thing about these is the fact that they're underneath the finish, so they have a little bit of an aged hue to it. It's just beautiful to me. It looks like a very old vintage modification because of that. But if you were to remove the Bigsby on this one and open these studs back up, actually, you know what? I'm really curious. Do they actually have the studs underneath here? I'm gonna break one of these out real quick and see. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm not that crazy. But we can take some time to appreciate the natural light finish checking that they've got going on here. If you guys thought that 355 Noel Gallagher was a little bit over the top, I think you would like this one a little bit better. I'm not going to say I'm overly impressed with the way the finish checking looks, because it definitely seems to be a little bit more spider webby rather than, you know, uniform evenly like you normally see on a vintage guitar. I guess that's the beauty of Gibson not having the original for people to compare it to. They can just age these whatever way they want. It's just a generic aging job as far as I'm concerned. But as far as our controls, it's just volumes and tones for each pickup, and then we've got our Veritone. So basically, 1 is your normal position, and then you slowly choke the tone out of it until it sounds quacky and out of phase. Some settings sound better than others. You just find which ones you like. And then underneath our pickguard, it would just look like this. Here's what the pickguard itself looks like. Multiply, black, white, black layers, and pretty basic on the back. Let's take an inside look on it with our endoscope. All right, starting through the bass side F-hole first. We can see it says ES-335 guitar TD, and then BB Regal is what they're calling it, and that's supposed to say 35. And here we can see the curved edges that I was talking about. This is the upper horn where they put a block of wood right there for extra support. Construction looks all right here. Here's our center block with the spruce bracing on the top and back. And then we can see towards the bottom edge of the guitar. But now inside to our controls. You've just got a little bit more of the same. We can see our bumblebee capacitors as well as the bottom side of our maple top. And it's all historically done here. But this is our center block, so you can kind of see where some of our wood splinters came from. And this is our cutaway area. But moving on from our body, we have the mahogany neck with a rosewood fretboard. It's not Brazilian or anything special, just your standard stuff. You've got your dot inlays with your vintage reissue style frets. It's your standard 24 3/4 inch scale length with a 12-inch fretboard radius. Then we're rocking a nylon nut measuring 1.69 inches, which increases to 2.07 by the 12th. First fret neck depth of 0.89 and 0.96 by the 12th. Here's that neck profile at the first fret and the 12th fret. A little bit more rounded in the chording area. It's advertised as a medium rounded C59 neck profile. And you can see we do indeed have the tortoiseshell colored side marker inlays. As far as the headstock goes, you've got a little bit of finish checking up here and the nice aged lacquer with our Gibson mother-of-pearl logo and the crown. We already took a look at the truss rod cover earlier, so we can move on to the backside now. Moving on to the backside, since everything's fished through the bridge pickup cavity as far as wiring goes, you don't have to have any back control plates. So that makes this a very different guitar from the Lucille, because the Lucille model actually does have a back plate. Oh, and in case you missed it, this one also has F-holes, so that just makes it different from all the other BB King signatures. I really like the wood grain on this one. It's nice and long is the best way to put it. But that's why I selected this particular one, just the long lines. I thought it looked nice. And on top of that, this one actually has a little bit of bird's eye figuring to it. You have 2 prominent bird's eyes in this area that dance a little bit. But if you watch the whole top, you've got like maybe 4 or 5 other ones that are just a little bit smaller. For example, right here, another less prominent one right there. When this model is spec'd out with plain maple, it's fun to find a little bit of character. Here's a quick look at that interesting white plastic strap button. This is just one of those tiny attention to detail type things, even though I'm sure a metal strap button is superior. But here you can see the aging of the straight up mahogany neck. They don't burst this at all, except for right there at the heel. Then back here, it is original Grovers on this one. And had King's been any different, I bet they probably would have put the Clusen holes up here. So maybe his was actually custom ordered like that. I'm not sure. Because I'd never heard of this guitar until Gibson decided to make a recreation of it. All said and done, not a bad weight, 8 pounds, 11 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug the Argentine Gray BB King model in and see how it sounds. Alright, I hope that gives you an idea of what all the varitones do here. Let's just get some more basic strumming chords, starting with our neck pickup. So position 1, really nice and full. But 2 almost sounds like you're just rolling your tone off. 3 has just a little bit more clarity to it than 2. I really like that forward position. Then 5. A little bit more nasally. And 6. I don't hear much of a difference there. It seems to be slightly different from other varitones that we've demoed on the show. Let's go ahead and kick on some dirt. As far as that grounding issue, I don't know, maybe that is supposed to go somewhere, so I might need to send this back to Gibson for them to figure that out, unfortunately. The only other thing I find mildly annoying is there's not a lot of grip for your strap on the bottom button, so it falls off very easily. I've had to catch this thing a few times. But yeah, I'd say the tones are very good out of this. I mean, maybe it's just because it's a B.B. King signature guitar, so I feel like I should play some licks in the style of B.B., but I was pretty happy with that until I realized, oops, when the top E string broke, from all my bending, I forgot to put it under the tension bar. But there we go, all fixed now. So what are my final thoughts and opinions on the Live at Regal 335 B.B. King new signature? Honestly, I enjoyed this guitar a lot. I don't know if I would personally spend $10,000 on it just as a guitar, but as a collectible, even then I'm still on the fence. But this thing is fantastic. So if you're just wondering, is this a great guitar to buy and you've got the disposable income? Yes. 100%, I will agree. It's got an awesome presentation. It's got a few quirky, weird specs about it that makes it more unique than just a regular 335 reissue. And it'll always have its limited edition nature of being one of 100. But as far as every player going out and grabbing one of these, nah, probably not. There's a lot cheaper options if you need a Veritone equipped guitar. Just grab yourself a 355 or something. I found the tones to be very pleasing. The neck profile is exactly where I wanted it to be. I could care less about a guitar with a Bigsby or not. Stock from the factory, mine was going tink, 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 but lubricating the saddles fixed all that. But if you're interested in being the next owner of my demo piece, you can check it out on my website, troglysguitarshow.com. But if nothing else, I hope you guys enjoyed taking an in-depth look at this new guitar. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.